We're now on Facebook, so let's not talk about that here. But yeah, we got a pretty decent race caught the end of, and so let's discuss that and more as Kyle Busch continues his dominance, I suppose. Here, so let's do this bad boy. Okay, there it is. The right rev of speed, or sometimes what I like to call him, the right rev of rev. He's Jerry Bonkowski, NBCSports.com. NASCAR now back into the full swing of things, and, well, yeah, you figure that out when Kyle Busch wins yet another race. Now, the thing, though, that I've noticed about this, and I remember listening to the broadcasters on the Motor Racing Network, they mentioned that, okay, sure, Busch wins the most laps. It was 79, leads the last 10 or so. But his car wasn't necessarily the most dominant all the way out. Didn't win the first two stages of the race and all this. There was, Kevin Harvick was penalized coming out of the pits, this sort of thing. Just your thought here on Busch's performance. Did he have the best car, or was he just the smartest driver out there on the track in Pocono?
Well, as I always like to say, you just have to be the best driver in that final lap. That's all that's important. And,
yeah.
I mean, the fact he led 79 laps, at a place like Pocono is 0.5 miles around. That's scouting in and of itself. But, I mean, Kyle Busch, man, won over 200 races, all three in the NHRA series. So it's not really anybody winner from last year's race. So it's not really a surprise that he did what he did. And, one of the things that's the hallmark of Kyle Busch, Marky, is that even if he doesn't have the best car, he finds a way to make the best car to win.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of what he did.
And, you mentioned that. I was, surprised how he was able to come on at the end of the race. I shouldn't say surprised, but I was impressed when I was able to come on around, I think there were about 13 laps left, and he was able to come on and overtake, it was number 8, let's see here, I've got this here, Daniel Hemrick, who finished 13th as a matter of fact, and I was a little surprised because he was leading late and then just dropped back to the pack and all this. Do you have any opinion what happened to Hemrick?
I don't know. I was actually at the NHRA race in Chicago, so I did not see the whole race, but, I don't really know what happened to Hemrick, no.
That's coming up, by the way, in Bristol here in just a couple of weeks and all that. But yes, I know they had the event. I was going to ask you a little bit about that, the NHRA up there in Chicago where you're at. Anyway, Busch is now 9th all-time, 55 career victories. It matches Rusty Wallace, who, to be honest with you, I off the top of my head, I would not have thought that Wallace was that high, not taking disrespect from Rusty Wallace. I was just, oh, wow, Rusty's top 10. I see, okay. But anyway, as we go into how many races, do you think that Busch, talk about him winning 200, more than 200 on all facets, Xfinity, Truck Series, and all this, but how many Cup Series victories do you think that he realistically can get? Could this guy win 100 races, as only Richard Petty and David Pearson have, in your opinion?
Well, look at it this way. He's 34 years old, just turned 34 last month. He's done everything that any driver could potentially do, but he still has some goals out there. And I would not be surprised to see Kyle racing for another 10 years, which would put him at 44. Now, he's got 55 wins in his first, 11, 12 years on the series or in the series.
Mm-hmm.
There's absolutely no reason to think why he can't hit 100 Cup wins, maybe even 105, 110. Can't take years for number 2 on the all-time list. And I think that would be one very major motivating factor for Kyle. Now, certainly, family would play into that. He got his son, him and his wife have a son, Brexton, and they obviously want to
Yeah, we're getting a little bit of feedback on your phone there. However, yeah, I'll just put it this way. Let's say that 9 more years. Okay, that would take him to he'd be 43 years old at that point. Well, if you win 5 races a year, which would you bet against Kyle Busch doing that? You win 5 Cup races a year, you've got 100. Which I think the Silver Fox, I think David Pearson has 105 for second place, but still that would be really impressive for Busch if that's so. You know, we talk a lot about can Jimmy Johnson, can he get it turned around so he can win an 8th championship? Maybe the focus in terms of legacy as well as historic ought to be on Busch. Can he become the 3rd driver to win in triple figures? Maybe that should be a focus right there on what is.
Yeah, but here's a point to really think about, Marky. You raised a good point yourself, and I'll kind of give you a good supplemental addition to that. Think about this, and I don't mean this in any kind of derogatory fashion whatsoever. I mean, Tony Stewart retired, Jeff Gordon retired, Dale retired. And very shortly, I'd say in the next 3 to 5 years, if not sooner, you're going to see guys like Jimmy Johnson retire, Kevin Harvick retire, Kurt Busch, Kyle's older brother. And we have a lot of good young drivers out there, but I don't really feel very many of them, maybe, other than maybe a Chase Elliott and maybe, he's the first guy that would come to my mind. But I don't see anybody else at this juncture stepping up to have the same kind of careers as a Kurt Busch or a Kevin Harvick or a Jimmy Johnson has had, which means, in my opinion, that Kyle Busch might actually have and I don't want to say easier, but he'd be more successful going forward once his chief competitors retire, because then it'll he could very easily win 7, 8, maybe even 10 races a year a few times going down the road here. So, I mean, I think he could definitely pass Pearson. I've been saying that for the last couple of years. And, I don't, he obviously will never hit 200 unless he decides he's going to race until he's 70 years old. But, he won't hit Richard Petty's mark. But still, when some of the top names in the game, other than Kyle Busch, start retiring, that's only going to enhance his chances because he's so young. He's 34.
Yeah, and, he's got the coin, too. There with Joe Gibbs. And that's the thing these days. How many of these drivers have the coin? Was Hemrick, it was something there that he couldn't compete at the end. And that's why when, he was passed at the end. That's the thing I think that we have to look at when we're considering what Busch can do in the future is what I'm trying to say here.
Right, exactly.
Anyway, there was one controversy, I think, in the race, and I want to see if you can comment on Austin Dillon in the first stage, very early out, went into the wall, got some contact from Paul Menard, and Austin Dillon said, that he really, talked about Menard and hitting him, and that's why, he was out of the race. He thought he had a decent car. He wasn't happy that obviously Menard hit him and all this. But isn't that just part of racing?
Oh, yeah, there's no question it's part of racing. And, the thing is that, we've heard this. If I had $1 every time a driver is, complained about another driver and, so that, he or she caused a wreck that, put the original driver out of the race, I'd be very wealthy. I could probably pay your salary at that point. It's racing. I'm sure Paul Menard and Austin Dillon will have a little chat if they haven't already. I'm sure they'll have a chat sometime this week. That's kind of the norm in NASCAR. If you have a guy you're upset with, you eventually do want to talk to him because you're going to have to race him, week in, week out for 38 races a year, 39 races for that matter, if you include the All-Star race too. So, you've got to have peaceful coexistence, and you don't want to carry a grudge. We've seen some drivers carry grudges, and more often than not, it works against them rather than for them. So I think that, I can see where Dillon was upset, but I think that, they'll get through this and they'll move forward.
Well, they used to both be teammates at Richard Childress Racing, from what I'm saying. And the quote then, and Menard is now with Wood Brothers, but the quote now is Paul Menard's been doing this for a long time about that early nudge. Was a teammate with him at some point, just, I don't know, he still hasn't figured it out, I guess. Menard said that he'd go talk to him, that, and he said, I had Denny Hamlin coming on the inside of me, I got all jammed up. They checked and up earlier than I thought, and then, well, he goes into expletive up, and all this, so he took some blame for the nudge. But yeah, a question, I guess, is, could quotes like that, I mean, how damaging are they to Paul Menard, in your opinion?
I don't know if they're really damaging. I mean, he obviously took some of the fault or the blame, if you will. So, that says a lot right there. I mean, more often than not, we'll see drivers, not take the fault, even if they are obviously at fault. They'll find a way to say, well, it wasn't my fault, it was the other guy's fault, and that kind of thing. But when somebody says, yeah, I messed up, or I was partly to blame, or whatever, it takes any kind of an ownership on the incident happening. That's a good thing. I don't think it's anything degrading or degenerative against the driver that caused the incident. I mean, he owned it, and we move forward.
Well, I want to also, Michigan is next, and, there's all been talk about attendance and all this, and NASCAR, of course. That's the Detroit track, so there's something special there, but I don't know if I ever told you this before, but I once remember meeting a professional ticket scalper who had been doing it for like 50 years, and every event you could possibly imagine. When I was a cab driver, I picked him up outside of a hockey game he had been scalping tickets at. He told me the most success he ever had in scalping tickets, making $9,000 in one weekend, was outside of Michigan, outside of this race and all this. Do you still think that it has that sort of popularity? I mean, now it's, it's sponsored by a casino, this race and all that, but I know we talk a little bit about the demise and the lack of attendance in NASCAR. How popular do you think the Michigan track is?
Well, I guess the best way to answer that, Marky, is, a little historical perspective. I started going to Michigan International Speedway back in the 80s, primarily for IndyCar, but I also did, a number of, it was CART at the time, but I also went there, obviously, for a number of NASCAR races, too. And that place, if my memory serves me correctly, it used to hold over 130,000 seats.
Mm-hmm.
They usually either sold out or came really close to selling out virtually every race. I mean, I remember, 2006 or 7, I can't remember the exact year, that, the place was a sellout almost, and it was a very, very bad rain, and we wound up postponing, or NASCAR wound up postponing the race until Tuesday, not Monday, but Tuesday. And, still a lot of people came out for that Tuesday race. I mean, they called off work or took a vacation day or whatever. Now, that being said, yes, Michigan has shrunk in terms of the seating capacity. I think it's somewhere around 90,000 now, maybe a little bit less than that. But the point is that it's still a very attractive track to go to. I mean, if fans can't make it all the way down to Indianapolis or Chicagoland, they'll go to Michigan. It's right in the backyard of the big three automakers. A lot of auto workers, they want to show their support for either Ford or Chevy or Toyota for that matter. But I mean, the thing is that it's a great track. It's very wide. It's 2 miles long. It's almost a carbon copy of what you see in Montana. And if you go to if you want to go to a race, I can't think of a much better place other than maybe a Bristol to go to see a race. I mean, if you've never been to a NASCAR race, I think Michigan would certainly be, within my own top 5 of places you should go to see a race if you're ever going to go see one in person.
Now, that's intriguing right there. So he had something to the ticket scalper. The problem with him is that he was telling me all these things on how he deceived Roberto Clemente out of getting free tickets and all that. And after a while, I was sort of like, geez, I don't like you when you're telling me that you lied to Art Rooney to get 2 tickets to a Steelers game that you could scalp, that sort of thing. So be wary of scalpers and all that if you are going up to Michigan and all that. But no, he told me he made $9,000 one weekend just scalping tickets up there at Michigan, which is the next race and all that. But you were in Chicago, and there's a guy named Steve Torrance who's now won 4 NHRA events. The NHRA is coming to Bristol next month. What's making Steve Torrance so good?
He's good. Plain and simple. I mean, there's really no better way to describe it. I mean, the guy, he's become, probably well, he is, there's no question about it, the most successful driver over the last couple of years. And yesterday, afterwards, we had a chance to talk to him in the media center after he won the race. And one stat was given that I just was blown away by this because, this is an incredible stat, Marky. In his last 26th final round of the final race or final round of a race, he has won 22 times out of 26 times in a final round. That's an 85% winning percentage. That's incredible. I mean, we're talking kind of percentages that guys like John Force or in his prime, or Kenny Bernstein or Don Prudhomme or Don Garlitz had. I mean, Steve Torrence has definitely moved into a class of his own, and the guy's only 36, 37 years old, and unlike NASCAR where a lot of the drivers are retiring in their early to mid 40s.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, John Force is 70 years old. He's still going strong. Ryan Capps is 54, 55, I think it is. So a guy like Torrence, if he's got arguably the best team in Top Fuel going right now. He's got an incredible amount of talent, obviously. I mean, I think this guy could become one of the greatest drag racers in history. And just keep on doing what he's doing. I mean, he's got a great work ethic. He comes from it's a small family team operation. And his father Billy, a longtime drag racer himself, he still races part time. He's 58, 59 years old. He's still racing part time. But I mean, for the most part, Steve Torrance's Capco team is a one-car operation. I mean, yeah, they'll get a little bit of data from when Billy runs, but Billy only runs, I think, like 8 or 10 races a year. His father, Billy. So, Steve Torrance has done so much just with what he has and the team he has, and they are just, they're kicking everybody else's butt. And I mean, you got to give the guy a lot of credit. I mean, he's very humble. He's very, down to earth. I mean, I've talked to him a number of times, and I mean, even yesterday, I kind of had to laugh a little bit because he was happy that he won the race, but he was just so subdued. And I mean, normally you see guys like a John Force when he comes into the media center, he's bouncing off the wall. Steve, if you didn't know he just won the race, you'd say, okay, what happened? And he's just that kind of guy. He's very refreshing to talk to. He's really good friends with one of his competitors, Antron Brown. They're best friends. He's just a great driver and a great human being.
He's also got star power when he comes into Bristol on the 14th
Correct.
or so. So there you are. I think Jerry Bonkowski has star power myself. And now you're going to hear my star power because this is my own personal recommendation for Asian House.
Home of the Happy Box meal.
There you go.